Let's have a look at this set. So let's read out the question first. So the following graph depicts the number of seats won by different political parties across 4 regions, north, west, south, and east, in the 817 against the respective amount of expenditure allotted to these parties, right? So on the vertical axis, we have information about the number of seats, and on the horizontal axis, we have information about the allotted expenditure made by these parties in these regions, right? And we have this, nomenclature of different regions as well. So this region, the shaded circle is east, and then blank triangle is south, then blank circle is west, and shaded triangle is north. All right, and it's also written the number of seats, if they are in excess of 40, then the exact number is given in the bracket. So we can have an example over here. In case of JNC, the number of seats is more than 40, so it's mentioned 60. For the rest of the number of seats which are lesser than 40, we can just calculate it through the axis, right? Okay, so let's have a look at the graph first. So on the graph, we can see that SGD, for example, won 10 seats in East region and incurred an expenditure of somewhere around, say if we just see this line, this is 10, this is 5, this is somewhere around 2.5, or we can say 3, right? If you talk about DPI, it's approximately close to 8. Okay, so this way we can interpret the graph. Now let's have a look at the questions and then we'll solve them accordingly. So the first question says, which of the following pair of political parties won equal number of seats across the country? Now, in order to find out the number of seats, we can easily calculate it like from the graph. But since the question here asks about not the exact number, but it is asking about the equal number of seats, and we are given options in pairs. So what we can do in order to save our time, we can do one thing, we just compare, right? For example, in case of this OCP and DPIM. So if we just look at the first, let's call it first zone, second zone, third zone, and fourth zone, first region, second region, third region, fourth region. We need not to understand the names as of now. So OCP and DPIM. So we can see the difference in OCP and DPIM is of 10, and DPIM is 10 more than OCP, right? In the second region, both are equal. So up till this point, DPIM is more than OCP by 10. In this particular third region, OCP is 10 more than DPIM. So that makes it both of them equal. For example, here it is 30, it's 20, here both are 5. So OCP is 25, DPIM is 35. And in this region, OCP is 20, then 25 plus 20 is 45, and DPIM is 10. So 35 plus 10 is again 45. So till this point, they become equal. And again, in the fourth region, they're equal again. So we need not to calculate the exact number of seats. We can just find out that since the number of seats across the total, all the regions is equal for OCP and DPIM, we need not to even check the other options. The answer to the first question will be this. Now, the second question, if the performance of a particular party is judged by the parameter S, where S is number of seats won by a party across the country divided by amount of expenditure allotted to the party across the country. So number of seats by expenditure. So this is the formula given for S. Now, we have to find out which of the following pair of party return the highest and lowest value of S in that order. Okay, so there are two ways to go about it. One, we can check out the options and calculate the value of S for each option and then find out the answer. Or the other way can be, we can just go through, we can do it by observation, right? So let's consider the first example. Let's consider the options first. So based out of all the 4 or 5 options given here, we can see that maximum value of S can either be for JNC, or it can be for CJP, or it can be for TP. Because the first option tells about the maximum value of S and the second one tells about the minimum value. So across all the 5 options, we have only 3 contenders for highest maximum value of S. Now let's compare between JNC and CJP. So we know if number of seats are more, S will increase, and if expenditure is less, S will again increase, and vice versa. So for JNC and CJP in the first zone, we can see the number of seats for JNC is very high and the expenditure is a little more than CJP. So in the first zone, we can consider JNC has a better S value than CJP. Now, considering the second zone, again, we have to do it cumulatively. I mean, I'm just doing it individually on the basis of region, but in order to solve it exactly, we have to do it cumulatively. But why I'm doing so? Because on the basis of observation, we can easily find out if we calculate the individual values. So in case of the second region, we can see JNC has won more seats than CJP, and expenditure again is lesser than CJP. So for this region, again, if we add both of them, the value of S is higher for JNC than CJP, right? Now in the third region, again, the same case is there. JNC has won more seats than CJP and expenditure is very less. So again, cumulatively for all the three regions, JNC has a better S value than CJP. And in the fourth region, again, JNC has won more number of seats. Expenditure is a bit high, but it will be cancelled out because if we look at this zone, the expenditure of JNC was very low than CJP, and again here too. So again, we can say cumulatively for all the four regions, the value of S for JNC will be greater than CJP. So CJP is eliminated from the option. So second option and third option cannot be the correct answer. Now, considering JNC and TP. So for every zone, you can see JNC has won more number of seats than TP. And in every zone, the expenditure of JNC is lesser than TP. In this zone, you can see, in this zone, you can see, in this zone, again, you can see it's almost equal. And again, here also equal. So of course, the value of S is again greater for JNC than TP. So TP also cannot be cannot have the maximum value of S. So option 5 is also eliminated. Now we are left with only two options, 1 and 4. Now we need to find out which of them, OCP and DPIM, has a lesser value of S. Now for lesser value of S, we need to have lesser number of seats and more expenditure. Since we know from the first question that OCP and DPIM has equal number of seats, so the total value will be, the value of S will now totally depend on this expenditure. So more the expenditure, lesser the value of S. Now for OCP and DPIM, let's see which one has more expenditure. So here OCP and DPIM has equal expenditure. Here DPIM has more expenditure than OCP. Again, here DPIM has more expenditure than OCP, and here too DPIM has more expenditure than OCP. So of course DPIM has more expenditure than OCP in across all the four zones. So the minimum value of S will come out for DPIM. So the correct answer for this question will be option 4. Now 10th, the next question is, if return ratio is equal to the number of seats won by all the parties in that region divided by allotted expenditure in that region, which region had the second highest return ratio? So return ratio is of a region. So the number of seats won by all the parties in the region divided by the total expenditure. Now we can easily see through the graph that the best return ratio will be, of course, for this region, East, because all the expenditures are lesser than 10. And the worst expenditure, return ratio will be for this region, that is not, because all the expenditures are more than 30. And we can see there's not much of a difference between number of seats across all the regions. So this is the first rank contender for best return ratio, and this is the fourth rank contender. Now we have to find out second best. Since we can easily say that second best return ratio will come out for this region, but there's a problem here. Return ratio is number of seats won by all the parties in the region divided by expenditure. We can see the number of seats has a lesser concentration in has more concentration in the lower region for this second region. If we calculate the number of seats, it will come out very less because most of the parties are concentrated here itself. While if you talk about this third region, most of the parties are concentrated around higher number of seats. So we need to calculate it for them. So if we just add it up all, we can add it all the number of seats of 40 plus 30, 70, 70 plus 40, 110, and then 120, 130, and then 10, 5, 140. So see, let's just write it down. This is south. So for south, the total number of seats is 70 plus 90, 110, okay, 120, 130, 140, approximately 140. And if we just add up all the expenses, so it will be somewhere around, this is 10, this is, so we can do it like this. So sum of both of them will be 20. How? So if it is 5 more than 10, this is 5 less than 20. Right, so it is 15, and again this is 15. So 10 plus 20 will be 30. So sum of TP and SGD is 30. This is again 30. This is again around 15. So 30 plus 30 is 60, 60 plus 15 is 75, 75 plus 10 is 85, 85 plus 12, it can be 97, 97 plus 18 can be 109. So approximately we can take it 110, 115, right? 110 will be a close value. Oh, 35, of course. So it will be 115. Right. Similarly, we can calculate it for west as well. Right. So you can do the calculation. So it will come somewhere around 150 and this is 195. Solving them, we can find out the answers very easily. So whichever region has a better ratio will have a second rank in the return ratio. So the answer here will come out to be west.